Okay, no, we've got to check out the we've got to check out the Duwang one. This should be fun. Scanlation and the story behind Jojo's bad scans. His expectation is become a gangster star. A gangster star. What a beautiful Duwang.
The year was 2013.
What a
Your
time.
friend had been telling you about this really...
What was I doing in 2013? I would have been 15. You know what? I would have been just getting first interested in watching anime.
unique series called JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. According to them, it'd been running since the late 80s and just recently got a brand new anime. Of course, after hearing
it had an old anime that was okay. It was an okay anime. It wasn't great.
And getting tired of not getting the references they're talking about all the time, you decided to give it a watch. And lo and behold, after a couple binge sessions through these 3 parts, you needed more. Just your luck too, because when you look at that, JoJo has 5 more parts that had never been animated, providing more wacky content than you could ever imagine. Now the only issue is where to find them. Hello everyone, this is the RPG Monger, and today let's talk about something I've been mentioning ever since the early days.
What did you like before anime besides video games or Linux? Video games. What did I like besides video games? YouTube videos.
Of my channel, The Strange World of Scanlations. For as long as the internet's been around, people have always been putting up official works online so others can get them for free illegally, whether it be something like a movie or even a book. It's so commonplace you don't even really think about it. And while those mediums
a lot of people don't even, like, so many people are so used to piracy at this point. At least it was like this for a while. I don't know if things have changed. But for a while, people would just talk about, like, oh, yeah, you know what? I want to watch a movie. Oh, we're going to find it 1, 2, 3 movies. Right? Like, for a lot of people, at least people I knew, didn't even consider going to Netflix because especially in Australia, and I don't know what it's like for you guys, Australia's Netflix originally was fucking awful. So people didn't even consider Netflix to be an option outside of the, like, 1 or 2 series they actually cared, or 1 or 2 movies, 1 or 2 series they cared about on there. Anything else, they would just go to a piracy site.
Take much to put online. When it comes to manga, the whole process and community around getting them out there is way different. You see, for the longest time, at least in the US, getting manga through official means was a huge hassle, especially if you're looking for a series that isn't amazingly popular. Of course, nowadays, things have thankfully progressed quite a bit, with a
sure, yeah, Netflix when it was a DVD service, that's different. That's different.
Wide variety of manga being translated and made legally accessible by various companies, with Shonen Jump even having its own official and made legally accessible by various
I like how we don't show 7 Cs here.
Companies, with Shonen Jump even having its own official app now, which on a side note, I'd highly recommend using.
Very nice.
But if you go back to even the 2000s, things were a lot different, especially if you lived in countries where officially translated manga weren't exactly commonplace. Though before we get to the moment I'm sure you're all waiting.
Nowadays, I can just walk into a bookstore and I will see, you know, there's a section of, like, My Hero, Beastars, Naruto, Jojo, Jutsu Kaisen, Demon Slayer. I gotta find the Prince of Persia movie on any streaming platform now. I didn't know there was... Prince of Persia... Wait, hold up. Prince of Persia movie. Oh, that one! Yeah. Okay.
What are scanlations exactly? Well, like it sounds, it's a combination of a couple things. Done usually by a small team of fans, scanlation involves the translation, scanning, and editing of the original manga into whichever language is desired. Though the process is definitely not limited to only manga. But since it's almost always a team of people doing this, it'd take no time at all for small communities to form online centered around scanlation.
What do we got here? Any names I recognize? Toriyama's World. I was never a big manga reader. I've probably seen some of these before, but none of them are immediately sticking out to me.
However, that's just how it is now. When people first started making fan translations of manga, things were far more crude. Having roots dating all the way back to the 70s, scanlations, or fan scans as they were originally called, were made more out of necessity than anything. What with
here's another one that I might need to look for. I want to know about fan translations pre-internet. Because I know there was an anime pirate. It was very small, very niche, but there was a anime piracy scene, like, pre-internet. And I think there's some, like, fun history there.
very few manga ever being translated in full at the time, if any. Hell, even the very first group of fans to translate a manga would end up impacting the official release of it a couple years down the line, with Tezuka Osamu's Phoenix.
Yeah, VHS,
and while
VHS
you'd think
tape fans, exactly.
wouldn't really exist without the internet to propagate it, much like how the first fan subs would be given to people on VHS.
Yeah, okay, maybe this guy's done a video on it. I don't know, very possible.
A lot of early manga translations would be made in and distributed within anime clubs through CDs or email. Though for the most part, they'd only be the raw scripts of the manga themselves. It'd only be in the late 80s where the first semblances of what the scanlation community would become began to show up, with a Usenet group that provided translations of Ranma 1/2 among other things. So that aside, moving forward into the 90s, as technology advanced, so too would scanlations in the communities around them. You see, at this point, Viz Media had finally figured out a way to get Western consumers to buy manga, with one of their most popular series, the aforementioned Ranma 1/2, developing quite a following for the time. The issue was, since Viz would only release 2 chapters a month, fans quickly grew impatient, what with the manga nearing completion and
oh man, we have our problems now, right, with like some official translations that are just butchering the work, but I don't know what they were thinking back then. Like, okay, hold up. Did Viz actually have a business outside of just anime and manga? Or they started in 86. Yeah, they started as a anime and manga publishing firm. Why were they so bad back then? Maybe they just didn't think there was a massive market.
Japan. In turn, alongside other translation projects spawned from similar circumstances, Ranma 1/2 would receive multiple scanlation projects throughout the years, being one of the earliest and most notable examples of what the scanlation community would soon become. Not to mention, at this point, what with the modern internet now in its infancy, scanlations would begin to look a lot like they do today, with popular manga like Dragon Ball. Scanlation
Hotmail address
would begin to look a lot like they do today.
Man, that's such a rough. Oh my god. Early manga scanlation. I remember reading so many series like this. You've got the fucking, like, these are supposed to be straight lines, I'm pretty sure. This is such a rough scan, man.
With popular manga like Dragon Ball being edited into English.
Yeah, here we go. Here's an ancient... Oh my god. I've definitely read old scans like this.
Using MS Paint, scans I'm sure you've come across at some point or another. So heading into the early 2000s, with many scanlation groups beginning to form and split up into new groups, the community really began to diversify, only blowing up more with a manga boom fueled by Viz and Tokyopop in the US. What was once a relatively small and scattered community had completely transformed. So now that we have a good understanding of the early...
But whilst it was in places like the US, a lot of markets outside the US had basically nothing.
History behind scanlation, let's get back to the main topic at hand. As you could probably guess, in the early days, scanlation was more of a hobby than anything, with the people creating scanlations doing it out of love for the source material in hopes of more people gaining access to it. A sharp contrast to how the scene would be a couple years later, with every manga under the sun being scanned just so you could read them for free. Hell, in the late 90s and early 2000s, the community was so pure that when a new chapter of a manga would be translated officially, the the people who'd put the scans online would immediately take them down. Though getting back on track, let's talk JoJo. Like you'd expect, in the early to mid-2000s, the JoJo fanbase was but a sliver of what it is today, with the only content Western fans had access to being the Part 3 OVAs and a few scattered scans of the first few parts, with Viz only picking up Part 3 in 2005, releasing it over a 5-year period until 2010. Needless to say, people wanted more. So in turn,
2010, hold up. I feel like Stone Ocean would have been done by then. JoJo manga. I feel like Stone Ocean had to have been done by then, yeah? Surely. Stone Ocean. Or started at least? No, Stone Ocean was the 90s. Wait, was Steel Ball Run done by then? Wait, hold up. I forgot how slow stuff released. I forgot just how slow stuff released after it went monthly. Yes, Steel Ball Run had a year left by the time that was happening.
While multiple teams and individuals got to work at getting scans of JoJo online, since nobody had started Part 4 yet, one guy would decide to get the ball rolling. We'll call him Josuke. At that point, in roughly 2005, Josuke had already begun scanning and editing Part 4, when out of nowhere, someone contacted him on AIM with some interesting information. We'll call them Koichi. You see, apparently, Koichi knew a guy in China who wanted to do the entire process himself to improve his English skills. From translating the text
now it's time to get to Duwang.
All the way down to editing the scans. We'll call him Rohan. And well, Rohan was definitely true to his word, because in no time at all, Josuke would be getting 3 to 4 translated volumes from Koichi every few days.
Wow!
Something that'd take a normal scanlation team at the time way longer. Though there would be a trade-off with Rohan's seemingly bottomless work ethic. While now, the internet finally had access to scans of Part 4 for the very first time, the quality of said scans was, well, less than satisfactory.
Scary Stand! Heaven's Gate!
From lines that were slightly off to, well, less than satisfactory.
Hold up.
From
my name is, you don't need to remember, Guanglai Kangyi. Yeah, you know what? This should have made it very obvious to me it was done by someone who's Chinese. I have no doubt in my mind that this is the Chinese reading of his name. I have zero doubt in my mind that would be a Chinese reading of his name. Age 15, the past month to me is only graduation tests. The entrance into high school brings really exciting and worrying days, till I met these two very special guys.
Lines that were slightly off to phrases not even remotely close to the original text. These scans, nowadays known by most of the
What a beautiful Duwang Jojo. There must be no other place as pretty as this town.
Fanbase as the Duwang scans, based off of the mistranslation of Morio, became the bad scans.
The electricity I used worth just about 1 million yen. Will be on your electric bill next month. By the way, Josuke, you're dead!
To end all other bad scans. It's funny, even while the scans were coming out, Josuke would try to tell Koichi pointers to give to Rohan to make the translation more accurate. Like Duwang, for example. Alongside other things, Josuke actually told Koichi that Duwang was a mistranslation of Morio, but Koichi would consistently refuse to pass it along to Rohan out of fear that he'd annoy the guy who was basically doing all the work.
I had a boner. The first time I saw her with hands on her knee. How do I say this? I had a boner. I forgot about this fucking scene.
In turn, after the whole thing was put out there, for many, it ironically became a rite of passage. What with it being the only available scans of Part 4 for quite a few years. Even today, these-
Wait, it was the only-
Chaotic scans remain fairly popular throughout the community as more of a funny read than anything. I mean, come on, there are countless parts throughout the translation where since Rohan didn't know how to translate something, the original Chinese characters would remain, leading to some...
Oh, okay, so he was... Right, I see. That actually makes a lot of sense. So he was working off a Chinese release of Part 4. Okay. I actually haven't read the entire thing.
Didn't know how to translate something.
I thought he was working off of a Japanese release, like as well. So it was like he knew Japanese and translated. So it was a local Chinese release, which also makes sense why some of the names are so fucked.
Chinese characters would remain, leading to some pretty funny parts in my opinion. But anyways, Duwang aside, there's actually another notable...
Do you know, we watched a video about English as she has spoke. What a legendary book.
Bad scan Jojo's had that, while not as notable as Duwang, would also end up having a pretty visual effect on the developing Western Jojo fanbase. When it comes to scans online, at least with me, the bad ones usually fall into two categories. Ones where everything is a total train wreck, or ones where the actual quality of the scans isn't outright terrible, but leaves a lot to be desired. Of course now, you usually don't see either, what with people having perfected scanlation, but back before old scans were replaced by the shiny new ones, many people just had to take them at face value, whether they were pretty on point or far different from the source material.
Wait.
Them at face value, whether they were...
It's on point, but yeah, I probably read this version of Part 3. Honestly, I feel like this horrible scan looks familiar.
Were pretty on point or far different from...
All of this happened. Here, fuck you to you. What makes you choose me for your vengeance?
The source material. And while parts 1 through 3 got decent scans with solid translation...
Also, it's pretty hard to fuck up order. It's the same as long as you get order once, you just keep doing that over and over again, you work it out.
Alongside Diamond is Unbreakable getting Duwang, part 5 of Jojo...
Hey, we're ignoring the most important part. Diamond is not Crash.
Golden Wind would end up getting its own brand of bad scans.
Okay.
First going on the internet at around the same time as Duwang, if not a year or so before it in actuality. The bad Part 5 scans are both a lot different and pretty similar to the first scans Part 4 received. Although the translation was this time far more accurate with 100% less wooden Josuke, Part 5 scans suffered from its own unique version of subpar translations. You see, just like the Duwang scans, the original Part 5 ones were double translations. Scans of the Chinese translation of Part 5 retranslated into English. Though unlike Duwang, we didn't have a Rohan situation with a random guy doing it to improve their English skills. This time the guy translating things knew what they were doing and produced a pretty serviceable translation for the part. But serviceable is all it really was, because while you could understand the story and follow the fights, the part was noticeably far drier than all the other parts fans had been exposed to up until that point. To put it simply, aside from a couple flat-out translation errors that are admittedly pretty funny, like how Ghiaccio's Italy rant was changed into him ranting about France, a lot of the personality and character within the part was kind of absent. Just take the main character, Giorno. In these scans of Part 5, his character and personality are all but sucked out, lost in translation, and replaced with very bland literal lines.
Consciousness is carving a path out of the darkest despair. This is what resolve is. It is to carve out your destined path through the darkened wastes.
Hell, for the longest time, in the West, Golden Wind was by far the least enjoyed part for a massive majority of the fanbase. A stark contrast to its country of origin, where in Japan, Part 5 was and still remains arguably the most popular one to date. Of course, now in the present year, things have practically reversed, what with better scans coming out since then and the part finally getting animated. But going back to when these scans were all people had, it's a really interesting chapter for the JoJo fanbase. Oh, and before I forget, alongside many people disliking the part due to the bad scans, the translation was also flat out confusing at portions, most notably with the main villain's stand. But before I go any further, since I kind of can't avoid talking about spoilers here, I'll put up a timestamp for when the spoilers end.
Skip to 11:52. Nah, we know our Part 5. Part 5 is so fucking good.
As they all Time skip to when the spoilers end. Let's talk King Crimson. As
Yes.
I'm sure you all know, Diavolo's scan King Crimson, to put it simply, has an ability to show Diavolo what happens in the next 10 seconds, which he can then use his other ability to skip time to position himself in the most strategic or desirable spot. However, for everyone else besides him, they just keep doing whatever they were doing before the skip and have no memory of those 10 seconds after the skip takes place. When given an explanation like that, it makes pretty good sense, right? Well, back when these scans were all people had, the like that, it makes pretty good sense, right? Well, back
Is the future the you of a few seconds ago is seeing the future? What? This is my King Crimson's power to erase time. I won't let anyone interfere with my rise to the top of the world. Therefore, I will erase you.
Back when these scans were all people had, the obtuse
Your movement trails, I can predict them. Your movement in the future. While King Crimson's power is in effect, time doesn't exist. No one else will be able to remember what they did during the period of time. Even the clouds won't realize they've been blown away. Nor will whole fires realize they've been put out. Only the results in this world. Only the results matter. During this time period, all your movements are useless. Only I will be able to see these movements. I can clearly see how and when you move. This is King Crimson's power!
translation did not do the scan any favors, with many being more confused than anything as to what it could do. As a result, with most people not knowing what the hell King Crimson did, many just started to say it just works, an in-joke I'm sure many of you are familiar with by now. Oh wait, hold up. There we go, all back to normal. Going back to the point though, aside from mooing turtles, the original translation of Part 5... Back to the point though, aside from...
Moo! Editor's note, I have no... Oh man, I miss editor's notes. I have no idea how a turtle sounds like, so this is a replacement. What do you mean? What? Wait. Actually, wait, this is 2005. No, that's fair. That's fair. Maybe there wasn't a video you could find. Maybe there wasn't a video you could find of a turtle. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Mooing turtles, the original translation of Part 5 really fell under a kind of middle ground as far as bad scans go, with the translation not being off enough to be funny and not being on point enough to be accurate. It's just kind of a shame that for many, including me, this was the only way you could read Golden Wind for some time. So all that being said, let's start to wrap things up. Looking back at the history of scanlation, it's really insane to see how many early fanbases were molded and affected by the scans they read, JoJo especially. I mean, just imagine if people only started scanning the parts in recent times. While they would have been better from the start, and not in Comic Sans, I feel the fanbase just would not be the same without such a unique early history. Thankfully though, after Viz only brought Stardust Crusaders over and nothing else, in the past couple of years, they've actually begun to translate things at a decent pace, getting parts 1, 2, 3 again, and now 4 out officially to the masses. So hey, even if you've already read all the JoJo parts and are caught up with Part 8, I highly recommend you pick these up. In all honesty, aside from Blu-rays, it's the most concrete way you can actually support the original creators as of now. Plus, with the aforementioned Shonen Jump app, you can even get parts 1 through 3 officially online. Something I know at least I would have killed for back in the day when I first started reading JoJo. All in all, the history behind scanlations really does give a window into how dedicated fans of manga can be, and without them attracting so many new fans with unofficial scanlations, I highly doubt companies would have ever brought as many manga over as they have today. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more like it, do subscribe, and today's cool thing of the day is Inside Scanlation, a site that I highly suggest you check out if you want to learn more about the subject. Hell, even with this video, I could have never gone as in-depth into the background behind scanlations without the detail.
I love that there's just like some random nerd out there that their specific thing they want to focus on is the history of scanlation. I love that there's just a dude out there that does that. That's kind of sick. Oh, sorry, one sec. Yeah, I love that there's just somebody out there that just this is the thing they want to spend their time on. Reminds me of the randoms who was archiving honey stand down rules. What? Anyway, that was a good video. I really enjoyed that one. I'm not aware of this channel. I've not watched any of their stuff before, but Oh, yes.